person next time. That's what I think. Okay, sorry. So I'm Susan Bartlett. I'm the Director of Energy Strategies and Solutions at Longmont Power and Communications, which is your local electric utility provider. And again, I'm really glad that you're here to have this conversation with us. And in case I forget, and in case Javier forgets, there's going to be a couple more opportunities for you to hear a lot more about our energy future and energy in your community, and we'll give you some information on that. But I wanted to talk with you a little bit about our partnership with Platte River Power Authority and Longmont Power and Communications as your not-for-profit community-owned electricity provider. Longmont Power's been around since 1912, and as I said, we're not-for-profit, and we are governed by City Council. So your elected officials are the ones that provide priorities for Longmont Power as well as give us direction. And then about 50 years ago, Longmont, Loveland, Estes Park, and Fort Collins all partnered to develop Platte River Power Authority. And Platte River Power Authority is our nonprofit wholesale generation and distribution utility. And the benefits to that are numerous, but many include scalability and keeping our rates as low as possible and having very reliable power, as well as having collective ambitious goals around environmental stewardship. And we talk about collaboration a lot as partnering organizations. And one of the things that we have been partnered on and continue to work very hard on is our goal of having renewable electric energy by 2030, or carbon-free energy by 2030. That's really ambitious. 2030 is not very far away. And I wanted to share a couple of things that we're doing locally, and then Javier Camacho from Platte River is going to give you kind of that broader look into how Platte River is working on that as well. So some of the things that we do locally are to deploy innovation on our grid or new technologies on our grids. Some of you may have experienced this already or are in line for your smart meter that's coming. Advanced metering infrastructure is going to give us a little more visibility into how power moves around on our grid. It's going to give us more control, it's going to help us respond faster to outages, and it's going to provide us with new opportunities to engage with our customers. We're also looking at ways to incorporate distributed energy resources on our system in an effective way for our customers and for our grid. We also understand that people are adopting electric vehicles rapidly. They're also moving to electrification. We saw a lot of that in the film. And so we're working to make sure that our grid can accommodate a lot of that new load that's coming on. And we're working with Platte River to make sure that we have the capacity to support those loads in ways that are as renewable as possible. And that's sort of the fun, exciting stuff. We also need to do the daily, regular, annual maintenance and maintain the backbone of our system. And that includes things like cabling underground, moving overhead to underground, or upgrading our cabling so that it's ready to go for another 30 to 50 years. It also means that we have to make upgrades at our substations, especially where we have large capacity coming on. And we want to make sure that all of those systems are working appropriately and effectively and efficiently so that you get that reliable power that you count on. I wanted to talk a little bit about distributed energy resources because we do believe that we're going to see a larger adoption in this area, and quite frankly, we need it to be able to meet our goals in the future. One of the first things that we consider as an important keystone of distributed energy resources is energy efficiency. And that's not new. We've been talking about energy efficiency for years and years, but it's still the cornerstone. The less people use, the less we have to generate, the less we have to move to your home. So that's really key, and we have programs that are available to help people do that. We've also tried out some demonstration programs where we can manage demand in partnership with our customers. An example is a smart thermostat demonstration we did, not this summer, but the summer before. We're also partnering with our customers by providing EV charger rebates, as well as Platte River's rebates for EV charger infrastructure. So we understand these are things that our customers want. We want to be able to help you achieve that, but we also want to be in partnership so that we can manage that load as it comes onto our system. I think some other things that are interesting probably for this crowd is that we're reviewing our local solar interconnection and planning process. We see a lot of additional distributed energy resources coming on board, and we want to be able to work with you effectively and efficiently to make sure that we're doing that the right way for our customers and for our grid. We're working with Platte River on a weekly basis to continue to develop programs that recognize what customers want to install, how to install it, how to reward customer behavior that's going to be helpful for our distribution grid and our generation requirements. And we anticipate new programs unrolling over the next few years to help us in that way. We're also working on city-owned community solar. Not everyone can have solar on the roof. In fact, many people can't. Whether it's that you don't own your own roof, or you're not oriented correctly, or you're in a multifamily situation where you don't have that kind of opportunity, and we're working on a program that not only provides that opportunity, but provides it for income qualified customers in our community, because we also understand the city has some goals around affordable housing, and your utility bills are part of how affordable your housing is, and we understand that. And then we're working on something with Platte River to get larger scale, utility scale battery storage into our community, because sometimes that's where it can be the most effective, is in these distributed areas where we can use it more effectively to manage the flow of power on our grid. And again, those are just a few of the things that we're excited about that we're doing locally. But I want to introduce Javier Camacho. He's with Platte River Power Authority, and he's going to talk a little broader scale about what Platte River's doing from the generations side. And I'll have you come up.
Question for you first. Is Longmont planning any time-of-use pricing?
The answer is we're thinking about time-of-use pricing. We're doing a value of solar study right now, but we'll have another rate evaluation coming up next year. And there are a lot of variables that go into determining whether or not a time-of-use rate schedule is appropriate and how we might best use that. So I don't want to say, yep, we're going to have one and it's going to be in a year. Yes, we're looking at it, and we need to be able to weigh the costs and the benefits to customers and to the grid for that. So it's a good question. Thank you for asking. Javier?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone. And thank you all so much for, again, I'll echo Susan's gratitude for coming out on this very snowy day. I am actually not originally from Colorado. I'm from West Texas, where we don't get snow in October. I can tell you that. I've never in my life seen snow in October, so this is wonderful. But honestly, it's really great to be with all of you today. I'm so excited to be part of the Platte River team. I joined a little over a year ago, back in July of last year, but officially moved to Colorado on December 1st in the middle of a snowstorm. So that was fun also. My first time at this facility was in the middle of a snowstorm. So me and snow have a great relationship. But what's even better is all the great work that we're doing at Platte River in partnership with Longmont Power and Communications, and really helping us transition to this clean energy future. Again, my name is Javier Camacho, and I am the Director of Public and External Affairs, Strategic Communications, and Social Marketing. And so my team, we oversee a lot of our community engagement, our relationships with our stakeholders and our partners, like you all, and really help sharing the story and the great work that's happening with Platte River Power Authority, in partnership with all of our 4 municipalities that we serve. As Susan mentioned, we serve Fort Collins, Longmont, Loveland, and Estes Park. So we have a lot of information to share with you. I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as possible because I'm sure that you all may have some questions for us. So, as I'd mentioned, our network of our partnership really dates back more than 50 years, although this year is a golden year for us, quite literally. It's our 50th anniversary, and we're really proud of that fact. We were officially formed in 1973 when these 4 municipalities came together to form what we call the organic contract. But that organic contract was actually in works 10 years prior when it officially came to as an idea in 1963. Really quick history. WAPA, which is the Western Area Power Administration, a federal bureau reclamation project governed by the federal government, basically came to this northern Colorado region and said, we will no longer be allocating more hydro to your region. So if you want to continue to meet the growing energy demand that you all can anticipate, you'll need to find other sources of energy in order to meet that. So multiple municipalities beyond the 4 that you see here ended up coming together to determine what was going to be that plan. And these 4 municipalities ended up emerging and developing that organic contract, which gave birth quite literally to Platte River Power Authority, which would become the wholesale generation and transmission provider for northern Colorado. And fast forward 50 years, there's been a lot of growth that's been happening. We can see it every single day up and down I-25. And Longmont is definitely on a path of growth. So we work very closely with these 4 municipalities, and those arrows really, I mean, there's a lot of meaning behind those arrows, but there's a deep interaction that happens between Platte River and the municipality and their distribution utility. We work very closely with all of these entities, working with Daryl, who's the utility director for Longmont, of course Susan, and really across the entire network of the city of Longmont. So it's a proud partnership, and we have a lot of work ahead of ourselves. So what is part of that work? Well, we're part of what's called the Integrated Resource Plan. We're undergoing this IRP. We are required as a customer of WAPA, again, the Western Area Power Administration, to file an IRP, which is essentially a resource plan on our generation every 5 years. Back in 2018, however, we made a very large decision as our board of directors, who are served by the mayors of the 4 municipalities that we serve, we serve in the region, as well as the 4 utility directors. Here in Longmont, where it's a little bit of a unique case because the assistant city manager, Dave Hornbacher, is the one who actually sits on our board, who used to be the utility director, was recently promoted to assistant city manager. So we're governed by a board of 8. And back in 2018, our board made a very big decision to essentially put Platte River on a path of 100% non-carbon by 2030. Because of that expedited pathway that we needed to take, 2030, even in 2018, was not very far away. We decided to expedite our IRP process. Instead of doing it every 5 years, we began to do it every 4. And what that does, it really just outlines what we're going to do or need to do in order to continue to meet the growing energy needs of our region while also providing a clean energy path for us. So we look at different areas on how to continue to meet those priorities. Also, we need to ensure that we're always reliable in the power that we provide, right? Even on days where, like today, there's snow, where our customers still expect to flip their switch or turn on their heater or plug in their car, they're still going to get the power that they deserve. That it's also economical, right? Susan talked about how Platte River works very hard to keep our rates as low as possible. Even with all the investment that we're undergoing, we're trying to still determine what is the most sustainable way, even though costs could inevitably go up. And the final thing is, of course, our environmental responsibility, right? So Platte River, 50 years ago, we got our start in hydropower. Even to this day, hydropower is still the only non-carbon emitting dispatchable resource out there. And unfortunately, it's dwindling. So we need to diversify our portfolio, continue to diversify our portfolio as we move forward. And we look at different areas, right? We have to look at technological progress. The video that we just saw talked a lot about the innovations that are out there and how we, as a utility, are harnessing the power of those advances. Consumer preferences. This is one of the first times that resource planning across all resource portfolios from other utilities, well, we're not only just looking at generation, we're also looking at weather forecasts. We're also looking at social behaviors. That is something that 20 years ago utilities never had to look at. So we have to start to value in those consumer preferences and, of course, regulatory mandates. Colorado has one of the most aggressive clean energy goals in the country. And that is, of course, being fed every year through legislation. And so we have to monitor that as well and be able to meet those mandates when they actually do become law. The IRP process is a very long process. It certainly does not happen in a vacuum. We want to continue to engage with the public, not only share the story of all the hard work that is happening both at Platte River and across all distribution utilities like Longmont Power and Communications, but also take in the feedback that our customers that we serve every day have for us. And so there's definitely multiple layers that go on through the IRP process. Even months before the June 1st meeting that we had, I don't know if anyone was at our June 1st kickoff. If you were, can I just see a show of hands? Okay, not many. All right, Susan, thank you for being there. Well, we do have another one coming up on actually November 2nd, which is this coming week, this Thursday. So we have 3 major meetings throughout the IRP process, but in between those 3 major meetings, we're doing a lot of mini presentations, going out to groups like here today to share a lot of the work that we're doing. So like I had mentioned, we kicked it off on June 1st. Our next one will be this Thursday, November 2nd, and it'll be held at our headquarter facility in Fort Collins, which is on the corner of Harmony and Horsetooth. So very close to I-25, so I know it's a little bit of a drive from here. Hopefully you can join us. But we are continuing to have that ongoing public engagement throughout this entire process, and we are looking at wrapping up our IRP process in the second quarter of next year when we present it to our board. Prior to that, we'll have one final presentation out in the community, and we don't have a date quite set, but we will be sure to advertise that. And then, of course, all the yellow, or orange rather, this is a lot of the work that our resource planners are doing, working with the different models, taking in all the data. We've contracted with a lot of experts within the energy industry in order to pull a lot of this data in. We keep an eye on different utilities across the region and really across the world on what is working, what's not, and we calculate all of that into the resource planning process. There's a lot of more detail that I can certainly share about the IRP, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and pull forward and to talk a little bit more about our resource diversification policy. So as I briefly mentioned, in 2018, that was a major inflection point for Platte River Power Authority. Every municipality that we serve, the 4, they were all outlining their own clean energy plans. And so as the mayors and the utility directors of these municipalities, they came together and said, well, as Platte River, as our wholesale generation and transmission utility, they should have a plan that reflects the work that we're doing on our municipal level. And hence came out the resource diversification policy, which clearly articulates that staff will work towards a 100% non-carbon energy resource portfolio while still balancing the 3 foundational pillars of our organization, which is reliability, economic and financial sustainability, and environmental responsibility. Those 3 pillars should not be sacrificed based on our operations and our advancements as we work towards this goal and really beyond. And so there were 9 caveats or 9 different elements that we needed to consider as we're going to make our pathway there, which is what's listed on the right side. We need to join a regional power market, We've joined an imbalanced system market, which, as I know, is very technical. Power markets can be an entirely different conversation. But essentially, that taps us into a network of other utilities across the region that we're able to buy and sell power from each other when other areas are experiencing more renewable energy, or maybe we are, or maybe we've experienced an emergency and we need to tap into other sources. So we've joined an imbalanced system market, which is great, but we've committed to joining an organized market in 2026. But we have to teach ourselves how to do that. So that was definitely one piece. Another one is we need to keep our eye on the advancements, the infrastructure improvements, and the maintenance of both the transmission side, which we manage, and on the distribution side, which is what is in the hands of LPC. So Susan spoke to a lot of those investments that we need to make, as well as the technology. We need to keep our pulse on those technology advancements, what it's currently capable of, how it will continue to impact our grid, as well as any advancements that need to be made. And so that will definitely be an evolving piece as we go through the years. And of course, looking at end user management, right? All of you, how you're interacting with your power. Can we have more access and understanding how you utilize your power, understanding your social behaviors, and of course the technology that you adopt, like electric vehicles. And finally, battery storage. The video talked about this, and that video was produced, I believe, in 2018. So a lot has happened since then, but battery technology has not quite evolved in terms of what we need on a long period of time. There's short duration battery storage, but we need long duration, multi-day battery storage. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in the coming slides. But there's been some major milestones that we've made at Platte River, and we're really proud of them, but there's definitely still a lot of work to be done. Since 2018, we've added a lot more renewable energy on our portfolio. We've added more wind, and we've added more solar. With a show of hands, has anyone been out to our Rawhide Energy Station up in Wellington, Colorado? Okay, a couple of hands. All right, so Rawhide Energy Station is we own that facility, and it's a beautiful facility if you haven't been out there. So, and we're happy to take you out there as we have public tours all the time. It got its start by generating coal. And again, Wellington is just half an hour north of Fort Collins, so about an hour from here. And since then, we've diversified our portfolio at this facility. We've added natural gas turbines. We call them peakers, which basically means that when energy demand is exceeding what we can currently generate based on other resources, those peakers are able to help meet those times of demand. So that way, when people are coming home from work or in the mornings when everyone's getting ready, we're able to meet the energy that you have. And those were built back in the early 2000s in a phased approach. Since then, we've added solar out there. We also have a 1 megawatt battery storage pack out there. Nothing much to look at, and it's just looks like a trailer. But essentially, that's teaching us how batteries will function within our portfolio, how it works in extreme weather, how we're able to dispatch it, how long does it last. There are other things that we've done since then. We have several RFPs that are out there. Those are called requests for proposals, which essentially allow us to determine who's able to help us build more renewable energy on our system. That we're looking at wind as well as solar with storage. We have a 150 megawatt solar array that is slated for construction. Ground will be clearing out the rest of this year, and we'll be breaking ground next year. So we're really excited about that. That'll be located in Severance, Colorado, just east of Fort Collins, as well as joining the energy market that I had mentioned. It's through the Southwest Power Pool. And then we filed a clean energy plan with the state of Colorado. Now, when we announced our resource diversification policy in 2018, it was a full year before the state of Colorado actually mandated utilities must hit 80%, an 80% decarbonization level based on 2005 levels. So we're really proud of the fact that Platte River, along with its municipal utilities, are leading the way in developing a clean energy pathway for the state of Colorado and really across the country. So here we're taking a look at how that renewable energy generation, what it looks like as we go through the years. So you could see at the very beginning of on the left side, 2018, the blue represents our hydro, the green represents our wind, and the yellow is the solar. Now, just take a look at how hydro progresses as it goes through 2030. And we're facing dwindling levels of hydro. So we don't expect hydro to go completely away from our portfolio, but we can anticipate that it will continue to decrease. Now, the kicker is, back in 2018, when we first announced our resource diversification policy, we did not anticipate that type of decrease in our hydro. In fact, we had to come back in 2020 and do a refresh on our resource planning because of that dwindling level of hydro. And so that has put added pressure of adding more renewable generation onto our portfolio, which is why you see so much of an increase in wind. And then, of course, solar will begin to kick in. Now, we are excited about these requests for proposals that we have out right now, but it takes about 3 years for us to actually bring generation from renewable sources online. So, as Susan mentioned, 2030 is not very far. So there's a lot of work that we're doing right now to get things started in order for it to begin to produce the power that we need. What are some of those challenges? And we'll be taking questions at the end, just so that way we can get through the presentation, but please hold on to your question if you don't mind, and then we'll get to that Q&A period here in a moment, okay? So some of the renewable challenges that we're facing is, of course, the natural intermittency of renewables. It was said in the video, and we experience it every day here. The sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. So we have to be able to calculate that and what that looks like both on a day-to-day basis and how that happens over a long period of time, such as extreme weather moments. We call those dark calms, right? So there are several days where the sun doesn't shine, there's a lot of cloud cover, and then there could be several days where there's no wind. So we definitely have to calculate those moments, and those are happening, unfortunately, a lot more frequently. So we have to anticipate that. In fact, studies have proven that we can anticipate at least one dark calm period per year. That's about 3 to 5 days. And during those moments, you still expect your power, right? So we need to be able to meet that generation, that type of demand, even during those extreme moments, despite how brief they may be in a year's span. Also ensuring that there's reliability in all weather conditions. I've said that before. And then, of course, looking at the next bullets, energy storage. Understanding that there is short-term battery storage, but how we still need that long duration, right? Multi-days battery storage. DERs, Susan hit on that a little bit. The distributed energy resources, understanding that all of you could eventually start producing your own power. If you put solar on your roof, you can generate power. If you have an electric vehicle, you now have a battery pack, so you could have storage. Your smart thermostats or your smart meters can begin to tell us how you're consuming power, or when we can actually level power so that way we're able to spread the consumption and shave peak, so that way we're not having to build new infrastructure, but rather utilize the resources that are out there. DER will give us a lot more insight to the behaviors on a consumer level, as well as dispatchable generation. So in those moments where there's not enough sun or there's not enough wind, or we don't have enough battery on the system, or it's already been depleted, how we're still able to meet that type of demand. So that dispatchable generation will be very important. So what do I mean by dispatchable capacity? Well, even the word dispatchable has become a lot more diverse based on how technology continues to evolve over time. And we're taking a look at this. Number one, there are thermal dispatchable resources. So lots of studies that are out there looking at how we could have a deeper level of penetration on renewable generation in order to support the reliability and the integrity of our grid as well. And then Also looking at how can dispatchable thermal generation continue to evolve over time, right? So now there are natural gas plants out there with newer technology that we can actually evolve over time as new sources become available, like hydrogen, specifically green hydrogen. There's also long duration energy storage. So as I mentioned, right now batteries can run from 2 hour, 4 hour, even up to 8 hour battery storage. But we're looking at about maybe, can there be 100-hour battery storage out there? That would allow us to help meet the multi-day or the dark calm moments. And then virtual power plants. DER actually becomes a backbone to a virtual power plant. So it doesn't exist, there's not a physical facility out there, but we're able to tap into how consumers can also serve as a resource to a virtual power plant and how we're able to interact with that. And then this pie chart just shows you how much of a jump we are making in terms of our renewable generation and our pathway towards our resource diversification policy of 100% non-carbon. But there's still a blue slice. That's about 11.8%. And that will still require a dispatchable resource. So one of these options we need to begin to explore right now in order to continue to meet the energy needs of our customers. Because if we don't, that'll be a big chunk of time where we can actually put reliability at risk. Again, one of our foundational pillars. So what are some of the key takeaways? Well, number one, we are adding more than 2 million megawatt hours of renewable energy to our portfolio. We're looking at an estimation of around 85% carbon reductions based on our 2005 levels, which is great. Definitely not 100% of the way through, but we're keeping a close eye on technology and how it continues to evolve in order to get us there. So we need to also be more creative on how we're looking at dispatchable capacity. And while we're doing all of these investments, how we're able to still be equitable and not putting utility costs, especially for those most vulnerable families, at risk. So understanding and valuing financial sustainability. So there's definitely a lot more information that we can dive deeper into, but we ask you all to continue to stay informed, stay engaged. You know, we've built out a microsite that has a lot of this information on our website. You can also visit us, like I said, on Thursday, November 2nd from 6 to 8. That's when we'll have the meeting. But we'll be back out here in Longmont the following week on November 13th, where we get to partner up with Longmont Power and Communications, and you can always engage with us via email or through our website. Again, thank you all so much for your time, and now I think we can jump into some questions. Great. Yes, yes, ma'am.
On your charts or anything, you don't mention geothermal. Is that still too expensive, or is it even a possibility here in Colorado, especially up in the Idaho Springs and stuff like that?
So yes, so geothermal, definitely. And you know, right now we're taking just a very high level approach, definitely a lot more information that we can go into. And some of the areas through our resource planning that we're exploring when it comes to our dispatchable capacity, we are exploring geothermal, I'm like blanking out on the different areas that we're looking at, but geothermal was definitely one area that we did explore through our resource planning. Unfortunately, it's right now, there's a lot of different technicalities that we need to consider, like the storage of it, how do you transfer it, where would it be most viable? I do know that there are some third-party companies that are in Colorado doing some exploration on how geothermal can interact and how it can continue to evolve. So we are keeping our pulse on that. Just at this very moment, we're not considering geothermal as part of our dispatchable capacity, just purely based on the viability of its technology today. Not to say that it wouldn't be something that we couldn't explore in the next 4 years when we come back and re-up our resource plan. Yes, ma'am.
Smart meters, how will they be phased in, and how does that work?
Sure thing. Okay, and you know what? I forgot to mention we have Zach running around with the microphone, just so that way everyone can hear the question. And the question was about.
Today, so this way folks on the recording can hear as well.
Oh, okay, great. I don't know if you wanted to repeat your question.
it was about smart meters. What's your plan? How are they going to be phased in? How will it change things?
Sure thing.
That's a good question too, thank you. We are underway deploying smart meters in Longmont, and we are doing a phased approach. We hope to have everyone's meter installed by the end of 2025, and having that, 2024, thank you, Daryl. Having that technology in place, as I mentioned earlier, kind of gives us better visibility into how and when, really, people are using energy. It gives homeowners more, or meter owners, if you will, more opportunity to understand how they're using energy in ways that you can use it differently or save. And back to the question on time of use rates, without having that infrastructure in place, time of use rates is not really an option for us until we understand when people are using energy and how that coincides with when we have peak capacity demands and when we need to curtail. So it's a really important tool in our toolbox for helping us achieve some of these goals. And you can check our website. There's a whole list of frequently asked questions. I believe there's a map available showing where we have our first batches of meters going out. And we're also working really hard to communicate with customers to let them know ahead of time. You'll get a letter to know when your meter is going to change out. So it's not going to be a surprise. You'll know it's coming. And we do encourage you to engage with the website and take a look at some of those frequently asked questions.
Yes, sir.
Run with that thing a little bit.
And then we have a question in the middle there, just for the next one.
I'm not sure what to make of the prospect of hydrogen. On the one hand, it seems great that, when you're overproducing on some of the solar and wind, you can cook hydrogen with it. And on the other hand, I've been hearing some people expressing safety concerns that it's the, smallest molecule and leaks a lot easier out of pipelines. And just wondering how optimistic you are about that.
That's a great, it is a good question, and appreciate that, because this is definitely part of the evolving technology conversation, right? So hydrogen is definitely an emerging technology in the energy generation space, right? There are certainly a lot of, there are definitely some concerns. We are optimistic about how hydrogen, particularly green hydrogen, will continue to evolve over time and how it can start to serve as a replacement to those fossil fired generation sources like natural gas. At Platte River, we have recommended to develop a natural gas facility that would allow the support of extra penetration of the renewable generation, since the vast majority of our portfolio will be renewables. The great thing about that is it'll allow us to then transition that technology that, that exists in that new natural gas facility to transition to green hydrogen. But there's a lot more runway for green hydrogen to make. So to answer your question more simply, are we optimistic? The answer is yes, we are. Does the technology exist today? It doesn't, but it's at least giving us the ability to build a facility that could run on that type of technology as it evolves, and hopefully we get to that point. So, but it's evolving very quickly, so very optimistic about that. Yes, ma'am. Question here.
Is there a trajectory for turning our landfills into producing energy?
That's a good question. And I don't know if I have enough information about that to answer your question here today, and I do apologize about that. I feel like there may have been probably some exploratory projects, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if you have any info, Susan.
And I don't really know the answer either. Zach may be able to help us out a little bit. We currently capture some waste, some gas from waste to run the garbage trucks. But I think the landfill is a Boulder County facility. Zach, is that right?
Yeah.
And so that's another partnership that would have to take place. And I don't know what what the capacity of something like that would be for the investment. But I think Javier has made really clear, at least in conversations, that nothing is off the table. Everything kind of goes into the modeling that happens at Platte River. Some things pop out of the modeling because they don't meet certain criteria, like maybe they're not economically viable right now. But that doesn't mean they won't go back into the hopper over time, and that could potentially be an option.
And it's a good question, so it's something for us to document, to take a little closer look at that. So thank you for asking that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much for this great update. I have one question about the IRP process.
Okay.
It does not seem to include, you had 3 items there, but it doesn't seem to include a funding aspect. And so I'm wondering how close a look, I'm sure you have, okay, taken, and there's been a lot of concern about increasing electricity rates in Longmont recently. But I wonder if you have taken a close look at how the benefits in the IRA and the Build Back Better bill would help you in this transition process. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So felt like maybe a 2-part question, or at least twofold, or maybe 3. So number 1, yes, our IRP definitely takes into consideration the costs, and in fact, when we do an array of resource planning. What's the word I'm looking for? Scenarios. Thank you, Daryl. Yes, so we do an array of scenarios. And we do an examination of what the portfolio would look like in those types of scenarios, and then therefore what the cost would be. In fact, when we first launched the resource diversification policy in 2018 and did our resource planning in 2020, we ran a scenario where we ran on purely renewable energy. That portfolio was very expensive, because we had to overbuild in order to meet energy demands at varying levels. And so we did these scenarios, and so we do recommend we try to narrow it down as much as possible, and we came down to 3 portfolios, and we ended up presenting 1 portfolio that helped balance all of those 3 foundational pillars that I mentioned earlier: reliability, financial sustainability, which is the cost that you're referring to, and then of course the environmental aspect as well. And so we definitely take those into consideration. Now, the other part is looking at the IRA, the Infrastructure Reinvestment Act, or the Inflation Reinvestment Act. I think that, I know. Thank you, Inflation Reduction Act. I have all these words running through my head. The IRA, and as well as the IIJA, and the Build Back Better. So we definitely are looking at that actively as we speak. There hasn't been a lot of direction on how to actually pursue these funds, so it's been a lot of figuring out that process as we go along. Recently, there has been a round of grants that have been put out. There were a particular subset of electric utilities that were not awarded. We were pursuing a grant, and unfortunately we did not get awarded that grant. So we're really trying to determine how we're able to take full advantage of those funds, and we're figuring that out, just to kind of put it simply today. It is a new space for us. Utilities haven't before been able to own some of this infrastructure, so we're really figuring that out as well. Hopefully that helped answer your questions, and I'm not sure if there was another piece in there that I may have missed.
That helps, thank you.
Okay. But I just want everyone to know that we are absolutely trying to figure this out as well, because there are funds out there that we want to take advantage of. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned residents producing some of their own energy with solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
Are you promoting that? Is there a way individuals who are interested can get good information about local providers and rebate programs and things like that?
Feels like maybe both of us will tackle this, but I'll say from the Platte River perspective, since we are the wholesale generation and transmission electric utility, we're not necessarily, we don't promote it or we don't discourage it. We understand that customers on the distribution end will make choices that fit their need. You know, some can afford it, some cannot, some can because they own their home, others cannot because they rent. There's just a multitude of variables that we consider. However, we are just planning for, and we have to forecast if there will be a growth in that distributed generation. So we don't necessarily say, yes, we promote it, or no, we discourage it. We just need to understand what will that trajectory look like as we go forward. But I know on the distribution side, there may be, it's a different conversation that you all have.
Right. It is a little bit different and complicated, I think. Like Platte River, we don't take a strong position on encouraging or discouraging. What we do know is that a lot of the resources that are available out there through some of the things that Javier talked about, like the Inflation Reduction Act and some of the tax incentives and rebates that are available, we know that more people are going to take advantage of that and want to go ahead and put solar on their homes. We would encourage anybody that's going to do that to add storage with it, another component, because we think that's the best approach for both our customers and for the utility, because when you're producing solar is exactly the same time that Platte River is producing solar. And when sun isn't shining for Platte River, it's probably not shining for you either, and that's kind of that's that gap that we need to try and fill with other distributed energy resources, is when you know, the sun isn't shining. And so we would encourage anybody that's thinking about solar to also think about storage, and you know, that's an economics decision as well. But there are tax incentives available, federal and state incentives available, and we currently have a net metering program for solar customers, which is it's like an incentive in and of itself, because any generation, any over-generation that a solar customer produces and puts back onto our distribution grid, we buy back at full retail rate, as opposed to buying from Platte River at a wholesale rate. And you know, the conundrum there then is anybody that doesn't have to have solar is subsidizing that extra cost that we're paying for your solar generation. So we're evaluating that. We want it to be an equitable approach to distributed energy resources in our service area. We want to understand what that real value of solar is that you're providing, and make sure that it's equitable across all of our rate classes.
And I'll just quickly add, Zach, I'm so sorry, is that so Susan, I mean, yes, absolutely, all of that she said, and that storage factor on a residential side, we also realize that can be very pricey, which is why 50 years ago, you know, when the 4 municipalities came together, they determined, you know, this generation utility could produce these options on a utility scale. And so that's why we are looking at energy, or looking at battery storage, or producing renewable energy on a utility scale, because we understand that for some, on an individual basis, on a residential level, could be really pricey. So just wanted to make that known, that absolutely we're looking at economies of scale, but understanding that some customers may want to make their own individual choice, and how we can interact with that through a virtual power plant or through distributed energy resources.
Awesome. Thank you for the great questions, everybody. I think we'll leave it there just in the sake of time. Let's have a quick round of applause for Javier and Susan.
Yeah, no, thank you, Susan. Thank you.
And I want to be sure to invite everybody to the resource fair, which is going on in the classroom just around the corner here. We're doing some induction cooktop demos, so we've got some free snacks for y'all to enjoy. And we're playing a bingo game where you can take home an efficiency kit that includes LED light bulbs and a smart power strip. So make sure you stop by just around the corner here. These folks will be available if you have any other questions. And thanks to our host, the museum. Great to see you all today. And we'll see you over there at the resource fair. Thank you.